Today we're going to talk about the 5 dimensions of education. 5 dimensions of education. And of course, these 5 dimensions are going to be included in our lesson for today. The first dimension we'll talk about would be what I would call the dimension of languages. Languages. The next dimension, along with languages, we would consider history probably as a language. We would, as a part of this first dimension, and then geography, geography, and then we want to include in this particular dimensions the power of what I call TV and computers, which can be used to teach these 2 subjects without really any problem at all. That's the first dimension. The second dimension that we're going to talk about is science. S-C-I-E-N-C-E, the sciences. This is the empirical approach to life, the sort of reality or objective view. This is your very clearly objective view based on the scientific method. And again, this too can be taught on TV and on computers without a problem. Something very similar to Khan's Academy. This kind of information can be under the guidance primarily of a human, and all these lessons will be under a human being. Now let's stay with our horizontal and vertical axis. We've talked to you about this. This horizontal axis is where what I call real world, physical world takes place here. And of course, we talked to you also about the vertical axis. And this is where our ascension into the unknown occurs. When we talk about learning, when we talk about education, when we talk about here and here, we're talking about primarily the operation on the physical plane. This is the physical plane. And the study of languages, history, geography, sciences, the objective reality occurs at the physical plane. Now, you've heard me talk in the various lessons about the power of life, love, and laughter. Now, these 3 things occur on the spiritual plane. Even though they occur at the physical plane, we know that these things occur at a spiritual plane as well, because we can't quantify love, we can't quantify laughter, we certainly can't quantify life except when it doesn't exist, when we stop breathing. But even then, we give that breath back, so life continues. There's no such thing as the death of life as we know it. We just transition from one form to another. So love, laughter, and an acquaintance with life, its oneness, its mysteries, and a reverence for life are all part of what I call the third dimension. This is the third dimension of education, and like anything else, we have to learn how to live on this level. Another dimension is the fourth dimension, and we call this dimension the fourth dimension. We call this arts and creativity. Creativity, C-R-E-A-T-I-V-I-T-Y. Creativity. where we can choose from a whole rainbow of creative arts, music, painting, drawing, acting or drama, and many, many others. There's sort of a rainbow of opportunity here. Now, the fifth dimension of learning we would call the art, and this is relatively new to most of us, the art of dying. The art of dying. This is a strange dimension for many of us, but I think that it's a dimension that we should pay attention to, and it should be a part of the educational process. So, this education on how to die includes such things as concentration, meditation, or concentration and meditation, or prayer and meditation as a component of how we transition as human beings to another level of awareness, another level of existence. And it's at this level that we become aware of eternal life. Now, when we say the art of dying, we're not necessarily talking about physical death, although physical death occurs as a transition at some point in our life. So let's review very quickly the 5 dimensions, and I think that it's very clear we're talking about the 5 dimensions of education. 5 dimensions right here. Again, languages, which is history, geography, the sciences, which is sort of an objective reality. The 3rd dimension being life, love, and laughter, sort of a 3rd dimension. And we'll ascend it at that point into the spiritual. And then the 4th dimension being art and creativity, aesthetics. That's another way of saying arts and creativity. And then the 5th, which would be, again, the art of dying. That means transitioning from one state of consciousness to another, becoming aware. And we've often told you that on this horizontal plane, at some point in our life, we ascend into the unknown. And we call this sort of a spiritual dimension up here. And this is sort of a physical dimension down here. And we exist on both these levels. Now, and when we can learn on both levels as well. So the 5 dimensions of education, language, history, geography, and the sciences as our 2nd dimension. Our 3rd dimension, or subjective reality, would be life, love, and laughter. Our 4th, which is also very subjective reality, even though it can be symbolically represented by painting, drama, art forms of anything that's creative. Anytime we touch, and anyone who is creative, very creative in the arts or music or in drama, will tell you that this dimension is certainly akin to God, because when you're very good at it, you do experience the power of God in your life. And then, of course, this art of dying, which we call the meditation or prayer. Now, let's take a look at our boxes. Again, we are representing languages here in this first box, right here. And then in the second box, this box right here represents the sciences here. And our 3rd box up here, I would say, and I'm going to skip over here to the dimension of laughter, love, and life. So we just write that in there, laughter, T-E-R, love, and life in this box. That's represented by this picture of a man tapping into his experience, becoming aware of his connection with the world in which he lives. And then over here, represented by the art palette, arts and creativity. And then here's the final dimension, this art of dying, meaning meditation. So, when we talk about this this art of Dion, meditation, and prayer. Now, we've told you what our whole school is about, is how the power of forgiveness can lead to transformation and change. And ultimately, this is where we want to be. We want to be here. We want to be at the stage where we can experience all the good that God is on the vertical plane. And that's on this plane here. But we have all these dimensions of learning in order to get to that part of our life. As we travel along this axis, we continue across, and we move from birth to death. And in between, we talked about ascending into this unknown, ascending into the art and creativity area, ascending into the life and loving and laughter area, ascending into the prayer and meditation area. Now, most of us all learn this. This is what our educational system is about. This is where we're generally locked into learning the objective reality of life. And we can spend years. I mean, if you started with kindergarten, represented by K, and go through 12th grade, that's where many of us begin. And then later on, we go through what is called our college years. We're still locked into the regular level. We're locked into this dimension of history and geography and languages. And then we move on. And then, of course, even at the high school and junior high level, we are introduced to the sciences. And we begin to learn chemistry and math and what we call the pure sciences. And then later on, as we continue our education, particularly a liberal arts education, we begin to learn history and languages and geography, and we get into the social sciences. Now we got the combination of these two areas. And we generally, if we're going to go to college and go to grad school, D-U-T-E, we go to grad school here, and we pick up a degree here. Let's say we pick up a BA or some other undergraduate degree in our specialty. Then we move to graduate school where we can pick up a master's or a PhD or specialize. But it's usually centered around these two areas. It's usually centered around these subjects in this area. But as you can see, we very seldom even touch on the arts and creativity. Some schools specialize in these areas, and of course they're considered specialty schools. But these two areas of learning right here is where we lose our focus. Many would say that this is the subjective reality over here. And this is what we try to do with the Forgive School. The Forgive School is about focusing, yes, here, and we feel like computers and TV and other learning tools can help us here. But it's here that we kind of lose our way, and I think it's here that we have not been taught how to live, the mysteries of life, the oneness of living, the reverence for life. And the vision of the Forgive School is to give you information, knowledge, and awareness on these areas over here. We'll begin in our next lesson to talk a little bit about the problems that we see with education in general, and we'll get in more detail.